The 19th century saw the progressive march of industrialization, which would change many aspects of daily life. One of the areas where the technological advances were the most drastic was in boats and ships, where innovation in design and materials completely changed how vessels were built. However, the biggest changes were in how the ships were powered and propelled, with wind sails being replaced by coal-powered engines. This age of rapid technological change didn't just lead to innovation among existing concepts, but also fostered new ideas that completely rethought how things could work. Enter Frederick Knapp from Prescott, Ontario. He was a lawyer with a burning enthusiasm for ship design, though he had no formal training. His design was not that of a traditional vessel that cut through the water. Rather, it was a long cigar-shaped cylinder that would move over it horizontally, with a rolling cylinder of paddles, the theory being that it was easier to paddle with the waves of the ocean rather than fighting through them. Knapp's design for the tube-shaped ship was 800 feet in length, 150 feet in diameter, and aimed to travel from Canada to the UK at a speed of at least 60 miles per hour. In 1897, he left his law practice in Montreal and moved back to his hometown in Prescott, where he steadily worked on his plans. He attracted investors from Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City, and even the United Kingdom. A Mr. George Goodwin, who made his wealth as a government contractor, put up $10,000 of his own money. Knapp finally had enough money to build a scaled-down, proof-of-concept version of his design. It was 110 feet long, weighed 80 tons, and was more than 20 feet in diameter. Inside of the outer tube would be an inner tube that remained stationary using a gimbal system and formed the interior of the ship, which consisted of passenger space, two engine rooms, one on either end of the ship, and a small amount of cargo room. The Polson Iron Works in Toronto accepted the contract for the vessel and completed the prototype for a cost of $125,000, nearly $4 million today. It was delivered for its first trials in 1898. While the design may seem eccentric and implausible, it was a time when inventors were the adventurers of technology and could become celebrities and cultural icons, a period where huge advancements in communication and travel were being made, as well as innovations in city life and household conveniences that were appearing at a rapid rate. It was never certain what the next big leap forward in design or technology would be. Why exactly Knapp was so enamored with the unconventional idea for sea travel isn't entirely clear, though he expressed a lifelong fascination with ship mechanics and stated he spent many of his sea voyages near the engine room, studying how they functioned and how to improve on their designs. However, it has also been suggested that he hoped the design would provide a smoother means of ocean travel than standard ships, by moving with the waves and thus preventing seasickness in passengers. Knapp, a staunch royalist, was aware that Queen Victoria suffered from seasickness, preventing her from visiting her overseas territories. If he could design a vessel that eliminated the ailment, the Queen could come and visit Canada. After some initial tests in Toronto Harbor, the ship was set for its maiden voyage from Toronto to Prescott in June of 1899. Sea trials had shown that it failed to reach its hoped-for top speeds and slowly chugged along at a few miles an hour instead. The lackluster performance continued on its first voyage, and the vessel unfortunately became stuck in the mud near Bowmanville, where it was left for over a month before a tugboat could come and pull it out. It was towed back to Prescott, where it would undergo modifications. In 1901, it was set for its biggest demonstration yet. On a frigid February morning, it was ready to sail across the St. Lawrence from Prescott to Ogdensburg, New York. A writer from the New York Sun remarked, "It looks for all the world like a big smokestack that has toppled over on its side." With this boat, Mr. Knapp tried a squirrel in a cage method of locomotion, referring to the exterior spinning wheel that was meant to provide propulsion. During the trip, the ice and wind proved to be rough on the ship, and it became stuck in the mud a short distance from Ogdensburg. Rescue boats came for the passengers, who sat freezing inside the stuck vessel, one of which was Knapp himself. The ship was left for the winter before being towed to Montreal for more modifications. This involved a more crimped, closed-in design as well as new engines, all of which were very expensive. The ship was then sent across Lake Ontario and back to the Polson Iron Works, all the while doing some awkward maneuvering through the lock systems across southern Ontario's waterways. When the ship finally arrived back in Toronto, Knapp was out of both money and interested investors for the project. Members of the press labeled the ship Knapp's Folly. The vessel sat abandoned. At one point it broke free of its moorings and collided with another vessel, causing minor damage to both. It was sold for scrap and largely picked apart during the First World War as the need for metal desperately rose. The remains of the ship sat rusting in Toronto Harbor for years. Knapp returned to Prescott to practice law again, and though he attempted further inventions, he never dabbled in the world of ship design again. He died in 1942, aged 88. The ultimate fate of the ship, or what remained of it, would be something of a mystery for years. But in 2018, Andrew King, author of the terrific website Ottawa Rewind, put together the pieces of the fascinating story of what happened to Knapp's rolling boat, using historical records of Toronto's waterfront and a report from the Toronto Transit Commission. The report stated that in 1923 the remains of the boat had been filled over during an expansion of the shoreline in the harbor. King overlapped a map from the report that marked the exact location of the rolling ship with a modern Google map view to pinpoint where the ship is buried today, which was shown to be a spot across Lakeshore Boulevard and the Gardiner Expressway, right near what is today FedEx Depot. It would be an exciting find for any future excavation at the site, and while Knapp's rolling boat is buried and covered over today, it's not entirely forgotten.